You've heard a lot today about various kinds of crises that we're in. I'm going to talk a bit about the economic crisis and the opportunities that crises bring, just to set the scene. So if you look at the last two big economic crises that we have been through, the two most recent, starting with the Great Depression and then the stagflation of the late 70s, in both cases, it broke the back of the previous mainstream dominant economic model and ushered in a new one. So the Great Depression broke the back of the neoclassical model. Doesn't matter the terminology. But basically the prescription of that school of economic thought was to do nothing. Markets are self-equilibrating, it's all going to fix itself, the economy, just leave it alone. The government should not interfere. So that clearly wasn't working. And so it ushered in, it laid the groundwork for the introduction of what we call Keynesianism. Basically, it legitimated the role of government in stabilizing the economy. It legitimized a welfare state, some kind of a social safety net, legitimized regulations, a whole host of things, various kinds of social spending. And so that was kind of what a lot of people would consider kind of like this golden age in the U.S. economy, up through roundabout in the mid-70s. We ran into some problems. There was this problem of stagflation, which is simultaneous stagnation, high unemployment, and high rates of inflation. One piece of that, there were a number of reasons, but one piece of that was the skyrocketing cost of oil, which really led to layoffs because the cost of production went up, and it also led to inflation. So here was this problem that Keynesian solutions were not very effective at solving. So again, that laid the groundwork for undermining the Keynesian model and ushering in what? Well, at the time we called it Reaganomics. In the UK it was Thatcherism. Some people called it supply side or trickle down. Nowadays, those labels have been pretty much replaced by neoliberalism. So neoliberalism in a lot of ways goes back to the pre-Depression school of thought, where again, the government should do nothing. The government should be as small as possible. We should privatize, we should deregulate. Markets good, government bad. So this is to say that we are now in yet another period of crisis. Neoliberalism is very much in crisis. And the question is, what next, right? There's an opportunity really to push for fundamental change. The solidarity economy is a very fast-growing global movement that really is seeking to transform the fundamentals of the economy and build an economic system that works for people and planet. So let me talk a little bit about the global movement. In the United States, we're way behind. In other parts of the world, social solidarity economy has been around a lot longer. The concept is understood. In Brazil, for example, they have a ministry of solidarity economy. They have a huge civil society forum on the solidarity economy. They have forums in every single state in a very large country. Ecuador and Bolivia have enshrined solidarity economy in their constitution. And we're also connected through what's called RIPESS. That's RIPESS if you ever wanted to Google that. So that's an international, intercontinental network to connect all the solidarity economy networks that exist in the different continents. In the United States, in 2007, we formed the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network. And what we're trying to do is not only is to build and strengthen the solidarity economy in the United States, as well as to connect it to the global movement. So let me talk a little bit about what is the solidarity economy. It's not a blueprint. It's grounded in principles. So the principles are, and it'll look a little different in different countries. But in the United States, we're focused on solidarity, sustainability, democracy, real democracy, so not just voting, but participatory democracy. Equity, we say equity in all dimensions. So yes, in terms of income and wealth, but also race and gender and et cetera, right? In all dimensions. And the last one is pluralism, which means that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. We believe that there are many paths towards the same goals. And we're not arrogant, so arrogant as to think that we have the answer, the blueprint. So there are many different approaches and strategies that fit under this big tent of solidarity economy. So I would argue that even though, like today, we've heard a lot of doom and gloom, right? A lot of the kind of scary things that are going on. And sometimes it can seem really overwhelming. But I would argue that there is a huge foundation that we can build on. And it's about trying to pull these pieces that are atomized, that are isolated from each other, and pull them together in a way where we can build a coherent economic system that serves people and planet. So let me give you some examples of the foundations that exist and some of the advantages. So for instance, in terms of jobs and production, cooperatives, worker cooperatives, where workers own the business. They're their own bosses. This is really a growing area. People, sometimes it's out of pure desperation. You know, people in hard-hit communities are creating their own jobs. One example is in the immigrant communities. There are a lot of these immigrant women's cooperatives, cleaning, childcare, repair, that are sprouting up, and they're helping each other, right? One that's in the lead, that's had success, is helping another one that's sprouting up. So that's on a very grassroots level. On a larger level, how many people here have heard of evergreen cooperatives in Cleveland? So quite a number. Not everybody. So evergreen is I would call it kind of a top-down example, where the major anchor institutions, the hospitals and the universities and the anchor institutions that aren't going anywhere, have pooled their resources to start up worker-owned businesses. So they've launched, for instance, a $5.7 million state-of-the-art green laundry that's worker-owned, and will serve we'll be able to do business with the anchor institutions. They've also launched a very large hydroponic greenhouse and a solar photovoltaic co-op. So it's an interesting example of a very large-scale, very capital-intensive project of building worker cooperatives. So this is exciting. It's creating a lot of a stir and getting a lot of attention. To talk a little bit, some of these things have been mentioned a lot already. In terms of food and basic needs, I think people already talked about community-supported agriculture as a way of connecting producers directly with consumers. There's a huge explosion in urban gardening where people are creating projects where they can grow their own food, right? So it's about sort of localizing food production and also self-sufficiency. There are lots of projects and initiatives sprouting up that are based on sharing and swapping, repair cafes where people are getting together and pooling their skills to just repair things that otherwise would end up in the landfill. In housing, how many people know Take Back the Land? Do you know that movement? So started in Florida and did housing occupations to get families back in their foreclosed homes. And now they're going national and trying to spread this model of occupying or taking over homes to prevent people from losing them. But they're also going a step beyond that to saying, this is the first step to prevent these foreclosures, prevent people from losing their homes. But what is our alternative? And so one of the things that they're looking at are community land trusts. How many people know community land trusts? So this is a strategy of creating permanently affordable housing where the land is owned by the trust and the house is owned by, say, a household. But they're able to get it very cheaply because they don't have to pay for the land. Plus, the trust is able to leverage lots of subsidies and that kind of funding. In exchange, you get a good deal for your house, but you agree that if such a time comes that you sell it, that you won't, if the price of the real estate has doubled, you're not going to get that. There's some formula where you're able to recoup anything you've invested and a little bit more to build up some of your assets, but it's not, housing is taken out of the speculative and commodified market. So until recently, they've been relatively small local models, but now there are places where entire cities are developing community land trusts. So Chicago is one, Irvine, California is another, where they're citywide developing the CLT model. Energy, there were already lots of examples of community-owned energy, so I won't really talk about that.